Hello, and welcome to episode 44 of the Knotted Knits podcast. I am your host, Amy, and this is my weekly check-in on the projects and progress that I have made on my knitting adventure. Today is Saturday, April 26th, and I have 5 projects to chat with you about in this update. For an up-to-date and a behind-the-scenes look, you can find me on Instagram as the_knotted_knitter. That's where I share how I fit all of the knitting into my daily life, and there will be show notes below in the description box, which will list the yarn, dyers, the bag makers, and any pattern links that I mention in this episode. A reminder for anyone who is participating in the Fiber Friends yarn swap, next Saturday, May 3rd, is the deadline to ship your swap packages. I still need to mail mine. I'm getting the final bits and pieces together this weekend and we'll have it in the mail this week. But I hope if you are participating in that, you're having fun conversations with your swap partner. And that's it for admin. So let's go ahead and jump right into finished projects. In this episode, there are 3 pair of socks that I have finished. And if you've been tuning in for any of the last couple of episodes, you have seen them all. And I'm really happy to have them, all 3 of them finished. The first pair of socks that I've completed is my Bumblebee Acers Outlander inspired yarn. This is the red Jamie and Sassenach color. This is on their 75/25 squishy base, and this pair and the next pair of socks that I'm going to show you are both knit on US 0 9-inch circular knitting needles to fit a US women's size 8 shoe. This pair of socks, when I use a variegated or tonal skein of yarn, I count my rows. So I did 20 rows of a 2x2 cuff, and then I knit 60 rows for the leg, and they're done. This pair of socks has been on my needles the least amount of time recently. They were cast on on a whim, really. Tore through them. I hit a point with my sweater knitting that I just needed something quick, easy, mindless, so I opted for this skein of yarn, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. I did weigh the skein that is left over from the cake, and I have 45 grams left over. So that is a substantial bit of leftover yarn for a full pair of socks. The second pair of socks that I finished are Knit Picks Felici in the Bonfire. Colorway was the name of this yarn. And when I do self-striping socks, I do not count my rows. So I look to see how many color repeats there might be in this skein and how they're working up. Do I want them longer? Do I want them shorter? And these I went for about 12 color repeats. So the blue at the top isn't quite a full repeat. I did do these socks to match with the exception of the heel flap. I did a little bit of yarn management and I pulled from the outside of the cake. Knit Picks comes in 50 gram skeins, and I typically knit them from the inside, and then when it comes to doing my heel flap and gusset, I pull from the outside of the skein. So I stuck with the yellow and then mixed it up with the orange and blue, and I think it looks really cute for a matching pair of socks that just has a different, slightly different heel. Again, these are knit to fit a US women's 8 shoe, and I love using Knit Picks Felici. I missed when it was out of stock, and I'm happy that it is a product that they have brought back. I like the self-striping. I like the 50-gram skeins. And I did look with this pair being finished. I have 20 grams left over, which does make sense because I did do some yarn management for the heel flap. I pulled yarn out and then I just threw that little bit away. But I have 2 little bits of yarn to go into my scrap bin from this pair of socks. Yeah, third and final project that I've finished are my self-imposed self-striping socks, and I am beyond thrilled to have finished this pair. This yarn is from Woolberry Fiber Company, and I love how pretty this looks. But knitting scrappy socks like this was not something that I really enjoyed. Weaving the ends in, the yarn management of every couple of rows, I knit 8 rows and then switched colors, which was not close enough for me to just carry the yarn. This pair of socks is a gift for a friend, so I really strived for them to be perfect when it came to weaving in my ends and just making sure that they were perfect. We start out with a different color on each sock, but the color sequence remains the same of 8 rows between the 2 colors. The heels are different, the toes are different, but I think they look really cute. These are knit over 64 stitches, 20 row cuff, 8 repeats. So the leg is 64 rows, and these are knit to fit a US women's 9 shoe. So they are a little bit baggier on my sock blockers. I do knit my socks at a 60 row, at a 60 stitch count, but this pair I knit at 64 because I wanted to make sure they fit my friend. So they're done, and would I knit a striping pair of socks like this again? Yes, but I would do it with maybe a 4 row repeat rather than an 8 row, something where I can carry the yarn in between the 2 colors and not need to weave in all of the ends at the end, because that was the worst. It took me about an hour and a half the one evening. Mind you, I did have quite a bit of interruptions, but to get that sock, both of the socks finished, to weave in all of the ends. Really wasn't a fan. Love them. So happy I knit them for a friend. It was nice to knit the pair of socks for her, and I will be giving them to her this week. Part of why I wanted to record today, because I wanted to be able to show them to you as a finished project before I give them to her this week. That means I have 2 new projects, which both might potentially be fails. All right, so let's talk about the first project, and that is in the bag that you guys are just getting used to seeing, my BarleyPurl bag. I've put one sock in here, finished the sock, put another project in here, and it's just right here when I need it. So I have been really thinking about scrap yarn, and this tote behind me that is full of 10 and 20 gram mini skeins, leftover sock yarn, and what I want to do with them. So there is the grandbaby, who is coming in 6 weeks, I think is where we're at for the countdown. And I decided the first project I wanted to knit was a baby Musselburgh hat. The pattern is by Ysolda Teague, and I picked out 2 mini skeins from Fangirl Fibers and cast on. So I am doing this as a 2-tone, a scrappy hat, and cast on for the newborn size. I am knitting this, it was new method for me, but I'm actually knitting this sock magic loop. I am knitting it using size 2 needles, and I have a 16-inch size 2 needle, but I wanted to use magic loop for this project. And I'm very happy with how it has turned out. But I'm starting to get nervous because I at the point where I only have 8 grams left over of the second color. So when I talked to you all about this project last week, on the last episode, I was talking about putting in a black border here. And I don't have any black in my stash. So I just went on a wing and a whim and hoping for the best. I have 9 grams left. I have 1.5 inches and the decreases to knit. So I feel like I am really, really pushing it for this project. Instructions tell me to knit until the length is 12 3/4 inches. So I am planning on blocking this because knitting Magic Loop, I have a little bit of a ridge in here because I'm trying to make sure that I am pulling the yarn tight enough so I don't have a gap here. So you can see that little fold. You can see it better up here. So I am going to block it. That means I have 1.5 inches to go and then the decreases. Now, I was able to do about 6.5 inches using this first mini skein, which pulled beautifully. I really love how that looks. So I'm hoping when it comes to the second part that I will be able to really squeak by and make it work. If not, I'm not quite sure what color I would pick from my stash to finish the top. I don't have a color that matches this at all. I thought about just pulling out, I know I have plenty of pink, about pulling out some pink to use here, which would kind of make the top of the two hats look a little similar, which is what I might do, because we've got fun pooling here at the top where it looks a lot more variegated. So with this being so speckled, if I used a pink, I could kind of faux fake it for here at the top. So that's what I'm thinking I might do, or that it's really obvious that I ran out of yarn. So this has been the main project that I have been working on this week. It's going very, very quickly for me. Even working on Magic Loop, it hasn't been a setback or slowed me down at all working on it that way. I've really wanted to knit the Cumulus Tee by Petite Knits. It is a V-neck pullover, lightweight summer knit, and I think it is a very pretty pattern, very flattering, and it's something that I have wanted to knit for a while. Holding these 2 skeins of hobby yarn, which is their Alpaca Blaze. Yes, Alpaca Blaze together would be perfect. And it was, and it is. However, I started the project this week. I found a very helpful tutorial to get me started with how the increases go. And I've knit about 2 inches. Okay. I love the color of the yarn. I don't mind how it feels against my skin. It's not itching in any way. I don't know that I'm loving it. And the bigger setback is I picked it up last night to put it on the table because I don't have it in a project bag yet. And I dropped about 30 stitches where the increases happen. I lost my markers. All of this. Let me turn it to the right side. So I can see here's where some raglan shaping takes place. The stitches, with it being mohair, I didn't lose any. I don't know if this is going to become a project that I continue to work on. I want the finished project. I really do. I'm not sure I'm loving the yarn. Right now it's very fiddly in the sense that it's knitting front and back. I'm considering looking at my pattern library to see what other tops that I have in my library that I can follow that pattern for a summer tee. Because I have a whole bag of yarn and I really don't want it to go to waste. I don't want to gift or give this away to anyone. 10 balls of yarn. They're about 250 yards each, so I have about 1,000 yards. I know I can get myself a summer tee out of it. So I was thinking more of a V-neck. This way it wasn't, with it being a mohair alpaca blend, that it wasn't very itchy on my chest in the summer. So that's why I was opting for the Cumulus Tee. The yarn is working out beautifully. It looks good. I like how the fabric is. It's not super sheer and see-through. But when I picked up the project this morning and I saw the needle disaster, I just put it down and said, we're going to take a break. I'm going to take a time out. I'm going to really think about what I want to do with this. If I want to continue it, I'm not that far in that it would be horrible for me to just frog it and start over, which is, you know, it is okay. I knit for fun. I knit for me. So if I decide that this really isn't what I want it to be, that it's more of a headache, I'm okay putting it down. It's not portable either. Needing to knit and purl and keep track of, there are 4 rows as you work through the increases. One row you do one thing, the other row you do something different. I know for me, I'm going to lose track. I don't want my numbers to be off. I would like the project to look just as elegant as it does on all of the other project pages that I've looked at on Ravelry. So what would you do? Would you pick up the stitches? Would you start over? I've thought about getting a sharper pair of needles. I'm using size 3 needles. So I thought about switching this over to metal needles with a sharper tip. I don't want to go with a stiletto tip because I don't want to cut myself as I sit here and tap my finger. So something that might make the yarn glide a little easier. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts with this project right now. I want the finished top. And I think that is what my dilemma is, because I would really like to have that as a finished garment in my wardrobe. So I've got some thinking to do about this top. And that's the knitting for this week's episode. I am still trying to decide what to do with this skein for the blanket. I'm really considering going to ChatGPT, typing in my idea, seeing what it spits out for a pattern. Because I want to use this for the blanket. It's good it has the stellina and sparkle in it, because I had the crazy idea of using this for the Cumulus Tee, but I personally am not a fan of the stellina. So this needs to go on the cast on pile. Again, 6 weeks. I've got some ideas of what I want to do with this. What I'm trying not to do is cast this on and work on the Cumulus Tee, and then it's going to be weeks of these two same projects. And I don't want to do that to you guys as viewers of this channel. Which brings me to the thought that I have had about doing a shorty sock knit along for summer. I've been looking at Summer Lee's patterns, and she has some fantastic sock bundles. I'll link them in the show notes below. And I just was thinking it would be fun to do a summer sock knit along for shorty socks. I rarely knit shorty socks. So when I say that, I mean like 20 rows of a cuff and then right into the foot. And what has me thinking about that is looking at the patterns that she has published and looking at some others on Ravelry, are seeing how little yarn is used for those projects. So I'm really tossing around that idea. So if that's something you might be interested in participating, let me know. We could make it very formal. We could make it very informal. I'm just thinking, for me personally, a summer sock knit along of shorty socks only, just to use up some of those scraps, make them as mismatched and wild as I possibly could, it's what I might do. Because this is going to be a blanket, which is going to be a challenge in itself, which is going to make me not want to cast on a scrappy blanket. It's going to be summertime and warm, so I want short, quick, instant gratification projects. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I want for my summer knitting plans. And I'm thinking about that because we are coming up on May in just a couple of days, and already looking at all of our plans for June and July, May, June, and July. I was talking to a friend last night about how much is crammed into the month of May with school events and activities, with all the extracurricular activities, and how busy the month of May is going to be. So I think focusing on this project is what I really need to do just for the entire month of May. I need to figure out a pattern, and I just need to cast on and begin knitting. So bear with me, stick with me if this is the only project that you see during the month of May. Hopefully that won't deter you from coming back, because if you are a returning viewer, I am so glad that you are here. And if you are a new viewer who watched this episode for the first time, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. And that's where we're going to wrap it up. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Happy knitting, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.